stop thinking about all of this as like something is wrong with me and reframe that as my nervous system simply works differently, right? Not why am I like this, but what am I like? And what does that need?
Welcome to Come Talk with Aimee, the podcast where sex isn't whispered about, it's talked about out loud. I'm Aimee, your host and intimacy coach, here to spark raw, playful, and unfiltered conversations about relationships, desire, and everything in between. No shame, no scripts, just real talk about what really turns us on. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Come Talk with Aimee. Yes, we have in the house today Tarah Sykes, sexologist, certified sex educator, and coach. Welcome, Tarah.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm so pumped to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to delve into this topic. So excited to have you on here. You guys, this is going to be fucking yummy. So, Tarah is the founder of Forbidden and Found, where she teaches the kind of sex ed most people never got. Medically accurate. We love that. This nurse loves that.
Yeah.
Kink-aware and refreshingly free of shame. Hell yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Tarah, I need to know, before we
hmm
get into it, what is making you hot and bothered lately?
Oh, that's a really good question. What's turning me on these days?
Yes.
I'm really getting into this kind of low beat, synthy like music. I've always kind of been into it, but it kind of like exits and then it comes back in and I'll put it on and I'll just be like, get into my space. It's been cooler here in Texas than normal for May. And I've been really just boobs out, loving it. Just no bra, loving it, loving the non stickiness for the moment because it won't last long. So it's just very like sensual.
I love it. You guys, we have like a fabulous topic. So, Tara, I'm so curious. You specialize in kink and specifically for neurodivergent loves, which I happen to be in that camp. So, what got you started in focusing in these two areas?
Well, being a neurodivergent ADHD girly myself, who also enjoys the kinkiness and the BDSM, it was kind of a pretty natural fit once I started educating and discussing and talking to people in my everyday life in education based pleasure shops, right? It's like you start talking to people and you start realizing, okay, wait. What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish here? And a lot of it is like, oh, well, I get in my head. Okay, well, why are you in your head? Right. And then you just start asking those questions. And then I was at my local dungeon one day and I was just like standing there, as one does. And people were still kind of piling in. It wasn't late. And I found myself just leaning against the wall, which I will do. And just like I'm watching the crowd. And something just kind of clicked, right? I was like, hold on. I'm like this. Everyone else around me is like this. There's probably a connection. So I start talking to my friends. Yes, there's a connection. Yes, the kink community has been aware of this for a long time. Nobody really talks about it. People are talking about it now. I think there's like a handful of people that are, and I love that. I want the very smart neuroscientists to start really talking about it instead of me cobbling together all of their scientific work and me making connections. I want someone to be like, yes, we will do a definitive study on this.
Sounds
So,
like a partnership opportunity in your
mhm,
future. Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, I had a similar aha moment. I think it was like 2 years ago. I was at a munch. So for people at home who may not be familiar with the kink community or munches, so munch is basically it's a happy hour social for people of like minds, the people in the lifestyles or people who are kinky, however you want to identify. And so it's basically like a mixer and I say happy hour, but it's not always alcohol. It could be games or whatever, but clothes are on, there's no play, people aren't touching in that way, in a sensuous way, but it's an opportunity to bring people of like minds together. So I was at a munch, and then afterwards, several of us were just having so much fun that after the munch was over, we like went to a bar and then went to dinner, everyone's like, I'm ADHD, I'm ADHD, I'm autistic, and like there were like 10 of us, and like literally all of us were kinky and neurodivergent. And I was like, maybe there's something there.
There's a Venn diagram, and those rings, they overlap strong.
Yes, absolutely. Wrong.
But that's not to say that every person who is kinky is neurodivergent, nor is every neurodivergent person kinky, but they tend to overlap.
There's a good amount. Yes. Yes,
Mhm.
for sure. So for people at home, because you talk about kink-aware sex education, what does that mean?
So essentially, for me, a kink-aware sex ed is that I'm not assuming that everyone wants the same kind of sex, right? Or relationship structure for that matter. And everyone just assumes like man, woman, right? It could be totally different. And some people are very kinky. Some people are monogamous and vanilla. All are fine. Some people are curious but nervous. It's about being respectful of the full range of human desire. And there's so much of it out there. I like to keep that pleasure, kink aware. Also, very specific dynamics require a little bit more knowledge to know, like, is it abuse or is it the dynamic? It's abuse if you have not consented to it. If there isn't something agreed upon and laid out to, if you maybe agreed to something, but then no longer want to do it, but it continues. If you want the dynamic to change, but your partner doesn't. If you're being coerced into doing something, if you're unsure, but you're having to do it anyway, all of that is abuse. Everything that happens within kink, BDSM, specifically power dynamics, there's consent on both sides. And that's super important. And being able to sit down and like have that discussion is also important. And that ongoing consent, not just like, I'm good with this, let's never talk about it again. That doesn't work.
Yes, ongoing consent before, during, and after, right? Like you may have talked about something 2 days before, let's check in before we do it. And then like during, it's so hot. You can say it in like such a sexy way, like,
It's
are
so
you ready
hot.
for me to put my finger in your ass?
And
Like,
they're like, maybe.
yeah, give the opportunity for the person to like feel that out, pause while you're massaging their legs.
Or if you want someone to be like super dominant about it, you can still say it like, I'm going to put my finger in your ass. Are you ready for that? Like it can sound heavy handed, but really because you have negotiated and you're playing with each other, it is one of those things where that is giving the bottom the opportunity to say no in any which way they have agreed upon.
Yes, absolutely. Like I am a whore for consent.
Yay!
Yes, we love it. And like for kink, a huge part of it is feeling safe so that you can let go or that so you can arrive, that you can be fully present because safety and honoring and being honored and knowing that like that is going to be respected and held throughout allows you to go deeper into your eroticism.
And it's also nervous system regulation, especially for people with ADHD.
Yeah, take us there.
All right. So, no matter who you are, neurotypical, neurodivergent, dopamine is the molecule of motivation, curiosity, and seeking. So, it's not the feel good chemical, it's the get it chemical. It's the thing that wants you to chase. Does that make sense?
Yes. Ooh, I love that description. Yes.
Yes, it's the get it chemical. So it spikes when someone is chasing after the reward, that anticipation of it. It's the wanting machine at work. So when the outcome is predictable, there's less dopamine. When it's unpredictable, there's more. This is why people get addicted to slot machines. It's that kind of thing. That's what's happening in everyone's brain. Okay. So now layer in individuals who have ADHD. The ADHD brain has dysregulated dopamine signaling. So it's not that they don't have no dopamine, it's that the signals required to jumpstart the dopamine need to be a little bit stronger, right? It takes a little bit more to come online. So
Yeah.
the brain miscalculates like what's different certain levels of importance, essentially, is maybe one way of thinking of it. We work on a different operating system.
Yes.
And we just need more to be present. So it's not good, bad, right, wrong. It's just a different operating system. And so what kink does, things like pain, power exchange, intense sensation, emotional vulnerability, right? All of those things to everyone, but specifically to ADHD brains, right? It's a signal that it can't ignore, your brain can't ignore. And studies have actually measured actual blood biomarkers during BDSM scenes and found that submissives show increased cortisol and endocannabinoids, the same molecules behind a runner's high, which directly regulate dopamine in the brain's reward center.
I knew I was athletic.
Yeah, see, you are. You absolutely are. It's like that subspace, right? That's that same correlation of getting a runner's high, right? And it feels calming because the ADHD brain is doing double the cognitive work just to manage itself through its normal day, monitoring attention, suppressing impulses, right? Tracking time, managing emotions. A scene takes over all of that, regardless of if you're top or bottom. So it's like someone else's control. The sensory input is so vivid that the brain doesn't have to fight to stay present. It's that executive function hamster wheel finally stops spinning.
Yeah.
The intensity isn't despite the calm, it's what creates it.
Yes. I
Super
love
fun.
that. So we're in the scene, right? What is the connection between like novelty seeking and certain types of desire or play? And how does that come into this like dopamine subspace high?
Yeah, no, great question. Okay, so it's the same neurology essentially expressing itself in two different contexts. So, novelty seeking is dopamine driven. ADHD brains are wired to chase that novelty. BDSM practitioners consistently score higher on openness to experience sensation seeking, extroversion, right? The same traits that are elevated in ADHD populations. They're not
Yes.
separate facts. They're the same underlying wiring. And then the next layer to that is oxytocin. So the bonding hormone, right? And that actually upregulates the dopamine pathways, which is super cool. So the deep trust and intimacy that kink requires doesn't just exist alongside the novelty seeking, it feeds it. So the safer someone feels with a partner, the more their brain neurochemically is primed to explore. So trust doesn't compete with novelty. Trust is what unlocks it.
I love that. That's amazing. So you don't need to breastfeed to get oxytocin. Just
You
saying.
don't have to. No,
You can,
no.
but
Find a trusted partner and have them spank your ass silly
yes.
or whatever you're
Or do the spanking or switch, we love a switch.
or you be the one doing the spanking. That's the thing. This isn't a lot of people think of this as like, oh, the ADHD person is always the bottom or the submissive. No, no. A lot of them are switches, honestly. But no, an ADHD top, man, those are like diamonds in a rough because they're so locked in to everything that's happening that it just kind of becomes a jazz symphony of just sensation for them, for their partner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
I know one, and it's so fucking great.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, you know one?
Yes.
That's wow.
Give it to
I'm kind of,
me.
yeah, I'm like, yes.
Gift to all of us. Yes.
Gift
So
to the world.
yeah. So speak a little bit to like more traditional, like sex, may be more of a challenge for people who are neurodivergent.
Yeah. Well, I think being present during sex is hard this day and age for everyone. There's always a lot going on and around. And I think also if you have kids or the daily life, the grind, it can be hard to get centered with your partner or partners in your body. So, because all of the things, even self pleasure, like you can even remove a person out of it. Some people have a hard time being in their body just to enjoy themselves. So, you take that, and because presence requires that signal, and the ADHD brain has a higher threshold for what counts as signal. So in traditional experiences, a lot is expected to just happen. Could go on a whole separate rant about that. But the mood builds gradually. In a ideal situation, the cues are subtle, the touch is gentle, right? The pacing is slow. And you're like, I love you. All the hormones start doing their thing. And for the neurotypical brain, that's totally great, right? That's enough. The dopamine system engages, it locks in. It's like, Yeah, we're going to get it. And arousal builds naturally. Okay. For the ADHD brain, that same experience can feel like trying to listen to someone whisper in a crowded room. The signal isn't loud enough, right? And so the brain starts wandering. Did I send that email? What is that sound outside?
Right.
Should I move the laundry over? And now the person is somewhere else entirely, not because they don't want to be there with their partner or that their partner isn't desirable or isn't attractive, but because their brain just left without asking. And here's what makes it worse. Here's what makes the whole thing even worse. They know it. They know it drifted. They know they have drifted. And so then they come back and now they're ashamed. And now they're performing presence instead of experiencing it. And their partner can feel the difference, hopefully, which creates its own spirals. So the person with ADHD starts associating intimacy with failure, right? And that puts a new neural pathway in like, this is terrible. I'm never going to be good at it. With the feeling of, I can't even do this right. And it's not even a libido problem, which every doctor is going to be like, well, maybe it's a libido problem. It's not a relationship problem or a libido problem. It's a salience problem. The brain needing a stronger signal in that moment than that moment was providing, if that makes sense. And that's where kink can shift everything.
Yeah. Oh my God. As you were saying that, I was like, just give me something to focus, that anticipation that I know, like, so I can just drop in and be present. And that's always my goal with sex is be present. But yeah.
That can be hard in the best of circumstances, right? Sometimes it feels impossible. And whenever I'm working with someone or I'm teaching a class, a lot of times I will say, like, take it one moment at a time, take a breath, feel the sensation. And sometimes, if you have a hard time doing that, remove a sensation like blindfold or noise canceling headphones. Remove an ability of one of your senses because then your brain starts to go, wait, whoop, there's something different.
Yes. We love sensory deprivation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Like if you're like, what is kink? Like, how do I get into it? You know, I'm neurodivergent. Am I kinky? I don't know. Like, start with sensory deprivation.
Oh, gosh. So, sensory, I think that starting with blindfolds is always really good. I have like a weighted mask, even just like a regular weighted sleeping eye mask, right? You don't have to buy any special equipment. If you don't know if you're going to like something, I always tell people this, do not go out and spend a ton of money on stuff you may or may not like. I guarantee you probably have plenty of stuff in your house that you can play around with first. You just got to get creative about it, right? Scarves, silk ties, anything like that.
Yeah.
Headphones or those little foamy,
Earplugs.
yeah, anything like that. I like the blindfolding. I think that there is something about hearing movement in a room, but not quite knowing.
And it's known, like, when you take one sense away, the other ones are also heightened, right? I know, and for me too, when you were giving the recommendations, I was thinking of, like, the retreat I went on in Sicily, like, I brought my own mask because, like, it's silk, which is great for my hair, and
Mhm.
it's pretty, and I'm a Taurus too, and I like nice feeling and looking things. And I was like, yes, the person had a mask, but I was like, please use my mask, not because I don't like your mask, but I know that I really like my mask and I'm going to
Mhm.
be more comfortable. I do want to try one of these weighted eye masks though.
I mean, I think you can get them at Walgreens or something, but like the pressure, totally separate side note outside of sexual play, the pressure on your eyes feels really nice.
We love it.
It's very calming. Like if you like to have just like something that's calming.
I
So
gotta try it. Yeah.
yeah,
I gotta
but
try
you
it.
can also during sex too.
Yes, during all the things, you know, pleasure, sexual pleasure, and just pleasure for
Everyday pleasure.
everyday pleasure, yes. So I am curious, like, as you were talking, I'm wondering, are there any, like, specific kinks or power play dynamics, etcetera, that you have seen in your practice that ADHD people tend to gravitate towards?
I don't think anyone has studied like that directly, and I want to be upfront about that. But based on what we know, right, about how the ADHD brain works, we can reason through it a little bit. So I would say anything that provides clear structure, right? So with built in intensity is going to be a great fit. DS dynamics, for those who don't know, dominance and submission, where there are defined roles, explicit expectations, and ongoing power exchange tend to really resonate. Part of that is because that external scaffolding for a brain that struggles to generate its own. Also, impact play or any kind of sensation play. And I want to be very clear, not all sensation play has to be impact or painful or jarring. In fact, there's some beautiful floggers out there that are very rhythmic, that are very massagey. They look intense, but they're very soothing. But that type of sensation tends to draw people with ADHD in because strong sensory input does what we've been talking about, right? It commands the brain's attention. It gives the body and the brain something to anchor onto. Ritual and protocol appeal for the same reason that structure does, right? So repeated patterns with meaning attached. Things like kneeling, specific language, specific sequences. For a brain that lives in chaos, ritual is grounding. I, for instance, have a nighttime evening routine. I never miss it. Like, I've done it since I was a small kid. And my friends were always like, you have your entire life never gone to bed without washing your face. And it took me until adulthood to realize there's probably a reason why I wouldn't, like, even in my college days, my super fun college days, why I was still like, gotta get the mascara off. One, it was probably like the wrong sensory. And two, because there's something ritualistic about it for me personally. But I do also want to be careful here because every brain is different. Every person's kink is their own. These aren't prescriptions, they're patterns that make neurological sense given what we know. I don't like to speak in absolutes because no human is all one thing or another. So,
Yeah. We are all individual. We're all going to have our own reasoning. But it's interesting to hear like how the brain works, like you're mentioning in neurodivergence, in ADHD specifically, and also what happens during some of these power dynamics, kink play, like impact, et cetera, which is really cool. I'm curious too, because something that I've heard a lot of neurodivergent people say is that growing up or even now as adults, they hear like people say, and this can be a trigger, because of hearing it so often, like, you're too much. Or some people, it's like, not enough, like that shame based. I mean, they're both shame based, but I'm curious, like,
I got told as a kid all the time that I was being too sensitive.
yes, that, me too.
Okay. It wasn't until like having counseling like a decade ago that I was like, oh, it's okay. It's okay to need things. All right, cool. Thanks. And it is. And for all of your listeners, it 100% is. And anyone out there listening who is struggling with that, know that you deserve all the things that you need in life, right? But what happens in relationships, especially when you grow up kind of in that way where it's like, oh, you're too much, you're too big, you're too this, you're too that. You show up constantly monitoring yourself, right? Which is terrible instead of actually experiencing what's going on. So if you've learned early in life that you're too intense, too distracted, too particular, too hard to read, too hard to satisfy, or in maybe one of your first relationships, right? Like you're a teenager, young 20 something, and you have like a partner that's like, oh God, I don't understand what you're saying. Why do you keep repeating yourself? You're just kind of like, oh, well, maybe it's me. It's always been me, that kind of thing. Then, you get a little bit older, maybe a little bit more secure, but then that starts to come out when maybe you are with someone who doesn't do that, but you're cautious about it, right? And so you bring that same like self-surveillance into the bedroom. So they're not just asking themselves like, do I like this, what we're doing right now in the bedroom? Am I responding correctly? Am I taking too long? Do I need too much? Is what I'm doing boring them? Am I weird for wanting something stronger, clearer, more specific? And then on the not enough side, there can be this fear that their body and brain won't cooperate. Maybe they can't stay present. Maybe routine touch doesn't hold their attention. Maybe they need more novelty, more pressure, more verbal direction, more structure, more reassurance than they're supposed to need, right? And so intimacy becomes less about pleasure and more about performance management. And that's where kink can really come in and be powerful for some people because all of that is laid out ahead of time.
Yes. And as you were talking, I was just like, And this is where, like, scenes come in because it fixes it in a way, like, at least for me, where it's like, I can just be present because I know it's gonna go down, right? And there's gonna be, like, elements of surprise, which is exciting, and that's, like, the anticipation, right?
Right.
And the novelty, which is, like, huge for us too.
Huge.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, but, like, having that scene, like, laid out, mapped out, like, so huge.
But also, like, imagining living in a world that is not built for you at all every day. For those of you who may be listening who are not neurodivergent or maybe who have a neurodivergent partner, if you've been told your whole life that you're too much or not enough, there can be something deeply regulating about a space where specificity is not the problem, it's the whole point.
That ooh,
Deeply
mic
regulating.
drop.
For all of you neurospicy gals, pals, non-binary pals, they, thems, all of you, every person out there, it is whether kink does it for you or maybe there's some other type of regulation, nervous system regulation you're able to do with yourself, with your partner or partners. As long as you find that type of freedom, and it is a freedom, right? You're letting something else go. You're crossing a threshold. You're choosing something that's for you. And then that then radiates to all the other people in your life. And then part of that's like the demasking, and I can go down a whole rabbit hole with it. But
Right. Well, like, let's go down that rabbit hole. I mean, it's because you mentioned, partners who may be with somebody who's neurodivergent when they're not. How best can they support? And then also, like, what conversations for people who are neurodivergent that find themselves with a non neurodivergent love? What conversations can they have? How can they both support one another?
I love this. This is so great. First, it's simply like, this is how my brain works, and it's going to show up in our intimacy, right? It's having that clear, like, my brain does this. This is what happens. I am letting you know that. Not as an apology, not as a disclaimer, as information. Because most neurodivergent people either never tell their partner their brain affects their sexual experience, or they only bring it up after something has already gone wrong and it comes out wrapped in shame. The second conversation is about what presence actually looks like for them. And so this is where like the neurodivergent person needs to sit down and do a little journaling, a little walk and think about it, right? What does presence actually look like for them? What does it feel like? Because it might not look the same way that their partner expects, right? Some people need to keep their eyes open, right? Especially if there's prior trauma. Or maybe they need a certain type of music or background noise, right, to stay anchored. Some need a firm touch instead of a soft touch. Some need to be told what to do so their brain has a clear task instead of floating around into the ether, right? So none of that is weird. But if it's never spoken, if the partner fills the silence with their own interpretation, that interpretation is usually, they're not into me, right? So your partner's going to be like, I guess, like, my neurodivergent partner isn't really into me because like they are just constantly staring off into space or their brain is doing something else. Whereas like if you haven't told your partner exactly what that presence looks like for you, don't make your partner guess. Either side. The third thing is it's about what happens when the brain checks out mid experience, because it's going to happen, right? And having a plan for that before it happens, not like some sort of clinical protocol, right? But just like a shared understanding. Like if I go quiet, it's not about you. Bring me back, do it with this, right? That conversation removes the crisis. That way it doesn't become a catastrophe. Because when you're in like a vulnerable situation like that, it can spiral real fast. And you don't mean it to, neither partner does. But like that just, and everyone's guard is down and nobody, but if you've discussed it, it might not be corrected perfectly the first time, but at least it's there. And it's like, oh, wait, let me kind of readjust, right? It's about what they actually need to feel desire in the first place. Okay. So not just arousal, but the wanting. Because for the ADHD brain, desire often needs a spark that neurotypical intimacy doesn't provide by default. So that anticipation, that tension, novelty. And I say anticipation and tension, and I don't want people to walk away with like, oh, well, my boyfriend's treating me like shit. And that's me like anticipating. Like, not that. It's like the cued drops throughout the day, right? Like whatever that might be for you. A text earlier in the day that builds something. Like that's not being high maintenance. That's giving the dopamine a reason to show up, right? Like, oh my God, my partner asked me to do this. I don't know why. Okay, maybe I need to put that on and just like follow along, right? And then how partners can better support ADHD related intimacy. It's just curiosity over correction. Be curious. Don't approach your partner's needs like it's a problem to manage. Approach them like it's something to understand, right? Because if your partner needs more of all of these things, it's not a criticism of you. That's information about their nervous system. And there's a difference between tell me what you need so I can fix this and tell me what lights you up so we can find it together. That's what changes the game. It's like not what's wrong, but what works. What pulls you out? Is there a time of day your brain is more available? Something that anchors you? Like be interested in your partner because that's all they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always like to say that curiosity leads to more coming, you
Yes,
know?
it does.
Yes.
Yes, it does. And here's the thing. It can be really hard because everybody kind of like gets into their own head. It's like, this is about, it's about me, it's about me, it's about me. Oh, they don't like me. Oh, they're this, right? And that's so normal and so natural and so human. And I don't want anyone to beat themselves up over that. But it is something to be aware of and to like check it. When those thoughts start like entering into your head, and this takes practice, but it's that like, okay, this thing is happening. My partner said this. I am interpreting it this way. I don't know if that's how they're interpreting it. Maybe I should clarify. Like, this is outside the bedroom, inside the bedroom. There are different ways of tackling that pending kind of what's happening at the moment. But it's that same kind of like, we're in a vulnerable state. I might not be doing something wrong. And if
Right.
I am doing something that is not keeping their attention, that is also not you doing something wrong. You just need to do something else, just something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of reminds me like of partners, like we need to understand each other's sexual scripts, right? All the history. It reminds me of a previous guest that we had on the podcast, Ian Kerner. I definitely would encourage people at home. Yeah, go and listen to that episode. So great. Grab his book. So tell me about the last time you had sex. Do you have it? Yes, yes. He delves deep into like sex scripts, and this is a lot of the work that he does with his clients and his sex therapy practice. So just
Yeah.
as you were talking, it was reminding me a lot about his work. It's understanding our scripts and not making assumptions. We all make assumptions. And especially when it comes to sex and intimacy, I feel like that's when we make the most assumptions because when you're naked, the fear, the shame, like relationships and that intimacy, like it's the utmost vulnerable space, right? The more vulnerable you are, the more it's like, I'm just going to make the assumptions. I'm going to assume this based off of those shame scripts that I have from all of life. Yeah.
Because that's also part of like what your brain does, right? It clocks, records, and remembers, whether you remember it or not, that feeling, right? Because your brain's always trying to protect you. And your brain is also really lazy and it doesn't like to change course. It takes a little bit of work and a little bit of like, I really want to stop doing this habit of like just shutting down. Like it does take both people, but our brains are all also high plasticity and they can change.
Absolutely.
It's just sometimes it can be hard.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. But it's possible for everybody out there. There are tools. Well, even like when you were talking about anticipation too, I know you were talking about it kind of in a communication piece, but I was thinking of like anticipation, like during a scene, like I love, and this is sensory too, because I'm such a sensory whore as well, but it builds the anticipation. So I'm getting the sensory and the anticipation when like somebody takes, because you mentioned a flogger, for instance, and drags that flogger like across my back or across my butt cheeks or my stomach or whatever, before. Also, like while we're on the subject of floggers, had an experience recently where I'm gonna write a article about this. I have to because
I'm so fascinated.
yeah, like I'm gonna write an erotica piece out for it. So keep an eye out for this.
I will. Yes.
Yeah, but where, like, I had my blindfold on, and then all of a sudden, like, the flogger's not touching me, but just, like, a windstorm around me, and I was just like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it was amazing,
Did you hear that?
Yes, you're hearing it, you're feeling it, and it was, like, going on for a while, and so, like, I'm getting the sensation of the air against my body without anything touching me, and I'm hearing that, right? So another sensory, and I'm getting the anticipation of, like, I'm gonna get flogged,
When
right?
is it gonna happen?
Yes, or, like, I also love rope play, and I love when somebody drags the rope across my body too before I'm getting tied up because it's, like, that anticipation, and I'm also getting that sensation, and talk about, like, drawing me in further into the experience and presence.
Have you tried, like, a straight jacket?
Ooh, no.
Okay, let me ask you this. So I don't have one, but I met a person who was making them for kink people, and I was like, "Oh, like, let me try one on." Just because he had, like, a bunch of them, and I was like, so curious. And I tried one on, and he started doing it up, and I went, "Oh." And I got it in terms of, like, if you like being tied up and you like that constriction feeling because you feel safe, maybe try a straight jacket. Not like one that's impossible to get out of, although cool. I bet you could maybe find one on eBay somewhere. And if that's your jam, awesome. Hit me up. I want to know about it. But one where it's just kind of like you put the jacket on, but I bet you could do it, try it out with like an oversized jacket that you can put on backwards and then just like have someone tie the arms behind and like see if you would like it. But it's that same type of like tight, I'm protected. It's like having a weighted blanket. I'm curious if you're interested into rope play like that, if that would be something you'd be interested in.
Yeah, so this is interesting too, because for me, what I like about rope play, it's not necessarily the being held part, which I've heard a lot of people describe. For me, I feel really beautiful. Like I feel like a piece of art. Like when I'm tied
Because
up.
you are
And
beautiful.
I can't see it because I usually have a blindfold on, but I just like the way that the tie, like I can tell it's intricate. That for me is like the hot part of it.
And like the feeling, the touch of the person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of that sensory in that way, but I've heard what you're talking
Mm.
about is like the feeling of being held. The straight jacket, I feel like it would need to be.
It's so specific, right? Like that is a very specific thing. And you would need to really trust the person that you're with.
Yes, really trust the person. It sounds like an edge for me, and we love playing with edges. It's not a red no, but I am curious. Now I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, I gotta explore this." Sorry, like, let us know in the comments. Have you tried a straight jacket for kink play? And we wanna know all about it.
Yeah, I've never done a scene with it. I've only tried one on and was like, I could understand what would be so calming about it. It would be like wearing one of those like super heavy weighted blankets. It's like that. So anyone who would need that type of sensation, try it out.
Or when you're like a baby, and they do the wraps, like their baby burrito, like, it kind of is like that, right? But for an adult.
Yes, that's great. That's actually a great analogy for that. Well, now that we're talking about it, I'm like,
I know, I'm like, new kink unlocked potentially.
you're welcome.
Thank you. And that's the fun thing about kink too, is like the possibilities are really endless.
Endless.
Sky's the limit. Yeah. And what's a yes for me, maybe a no for you, or maybe a maybe, right? Like, and that's the cool thing.
It's so customizable.
Yes, yes. I know in the beginning we talked a little bit about consent, but if we could talk a little bit more about that because we are talking about the edge, like there's edging as far as like orgasm, but that's not what when I say edge play, I mean like, okay, we're getting into my yellow zone of things that like I might be okay with. I'm curious, but I'm not sure if I'm like, yes, I definitely want to experience that. So can you talk about maybe a little bit of playing with edges and also like how to advocate for consent and how consent should happen in these spaces?
Yeah, I think that people sometimes imagine consent as this like one big yes. But in kink, it's more nuanced, right? So a yes to a spanking is not automatically a yes to humiliation. A yes to restraint is not automatically a yes to pain. A yes today may change tomorrow. So good communication means asking precise questions and making room for answers to change. So during a scene, consent can look like check-ins, safe words. I'm a huge fan of the traffic light system. Anyone who's listening who doesn't know, that's, green's all good. Yellow is slow down. I maybe need a minute. We need to maybe talk about it. And red is stop, full stop, everything stops, right? So that's a very easy way to learn that. Also, a very good thing to think about is if red or whatever your safe word might be is said, what are the next steps? Because let's say you're trying out bondage for the first time and you're tied up and your partner says or does something that you would maybe have been okay with, but you hadn't discussed it, or it triggers something that you weren't quite sure was going to be triggered, right? Because that can happen. And you say red and the scene is supposed to stop. What is the very first thing that happens? Right. And you need to talk about that with your partner. For me, the very first thing that happens is you untie me. You get me out of whatever restraint that I'm in. And then from there, maybe for some people, it's like hugging and getting your breath in order. Or for others, it could be like taking a beat and listening, but it's not the time to get defensive.
Give me a glass of water.
Get a glass of water. Let's recalibrate. Right. So have that plan laid out, because you can say red means stop and everyone agrees that red means stop, but not everyone might not agree what stop looks like. It's something to think about. What is aftercare, right? What does that look like? What is the debriefing, right? What felt good? What didn't? What surprised us? What should we potentially expect next time, right?
Yeah.
At its best, consent communication is not a mood killer. It builds trust and it lets people actually relax and explore any kind of play. Quite frankly, more vanilla couples need it because they would probably have a lot more fun if like these conversations were happening. Essentially, it's clear before, responsive during, caring after.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love. Oh my God, Tara, this has been so amazing. I like have so many like follow-up questions. Before we wrap up, what is one thing that you hope listeners like walk away feeling permission about exploring after this conversation?
If your listeners walk away with one thing, I want it to be that their needs are not the problem. They have never been the problem.
Yes. Like round of applause, fucking mic drop. Yes.
Yeah. If you need more intensity, that's valid. If you need things to be like explicit instead of implied, that's valid. If you need structure to feel safe, all of the things, anything you need within kink, outside of kink, whatever, it's all valid. And I hope someone listening tonight stops apologizing for how they were wired and starts getting curious about what happens when they actually give themselves what they need, right? Instead of performing what everyone else has told them to do.
Yes. It's so interesting too, because like we talk about scenes, right? And it's actually like, yes, because we're setting up like that structure and it's a container really, but it's not performance. And so many
Correct.
people perform sexually and are unsatisfied. And it's like, not our performance. Like it's called a scene, but it's like,
Right. The performance that you're doing in your everyday life is the performance. You should not have to perform in the bed, like perform all of that bullshit in the bedroom. Stop thinking about all of this as like something is wrong with me and reframe that as my nervous system simply works differently, right? Not why am I like this, but what am I like and what does that need?
yes.
Not why am I like this? What am I like? Because that's the difference. That's the reframe.
That curiosity for yourself. Hopefully, we've piqued your interest in like exploring and thinking about what's possible in the bedroom for you. Tara, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
are you ready to come to completion?
Yes, I am. So excited.
All right, an opportunity for me to ask questions and for our guests, today it's Tara, to answer in a rapid fire way. Tara, praise kink or competency kink?
Praise.
Praise me.
Yes. And be filthy about it
Exactly.
too.
Yes. Do you have, like, a specific phrase you like?
Well, there are the standard, like, ooh, good girl, dirty girl. I really like, that's a greedy cunt.
Yummy.
There's something when it's said in the right tone, in the right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, mhm.
All right. Brat energy or service energy?
It depends on where I'm at in my cycle phase.
I love that nuance. Yes, yes. It's amazing.
Yeah, sometimes I am real like, "What the fuck did you just say?" And then the other times I'm like, "Oh, my darling, what can I do for you? Let me rub your feet."
That's amazing.
And with every year, I think my hormones are just, like, changing more and more because the swings are wild.
They are. I'm like another research opportunity for somebody who's in a PhD program is looking at like our cycles or also like perimenopause and menopause and people who are going through those hormonal changes. Like, how does that then come into the bedroom and how the different kinks that we have?
I have such a funny, like, super quick story. One of the first times at the dungeon that I go to, I was greeted by this just adorable little tiny 20 something bouncy lace clad just greeter of all people. And she was the most lovely person. And she was like, "Oh, you're into impact." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Thuddy or stingy?" And I looked at her and I was like, "It depends on my cycle." And she just kind of tilted her head, and I was like,
I love it.
I'm like, "Yeah." Like, what I want in terms of that totally changes from week to week. And she was like, "Interesting." And I was like, "It'll happen to you too."
Which makes sense too, because like your blood flow throughout your
Yeah.
body is different, right? So the pain sensation and how you're feeling. Ooh, love that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Like maybe I'm going to be doing a research topic on this. I finally found a PhD topic. I'm not in a PhD program because I'm always like, what would my PhD topic be?
All the things we've talked about today.
I know. I'm going to be like at midnight Googling, like,
PhD
yeah,
programs.
PhD. Yeah, exactly. Eye contact or blindfold?
If someone is doing to me, I want blindfold. If I am doing to, I want eye contact.
Hot. Woo!
Yeah.
Okay. Structured play or dopamine chaos?
Probably, I mean, I want to say dopamine chaos, but let's be realsies here. Probably structured plan.
I love it. What's sexier, intelligence or confidence?
When I read this, I was like, oh, they're both sexy. So I'm going to go with confidence and let me tell you why. If you're a confident person who is not a know it all and who's interested in learning, then doing that super sexy, like lean in a doorway, honey, I can teach you anything.
Hot.
I cannot teach you confidence.
Yes.
So I do think intelligence is sexy. I don't think that dumb is sexy. But if you're willing to learn, confidence, baby.
Yes. Woo,
Yeah.
woo, woo, woo. So hot. Most underrated form of foreplay.
The little touches throughout the day. Foreplay starts from the time you wake up, right? The gentle touch, the caress, the have a good day, I'm thinking about you, right? All of that is a buildup too. And then, if you want me to get a little bit more specific, heavy petting, making out, grinding on each other. People just don't do that. And it is so hot. Well, no, no, no. You know who does it? Sapphics. Sapphics do. The lesbians now.
The lesbians
I
know.
mean, just I'll grind on your knee all day. Let's do it.
So hot. Ooh.
So hot.
Yes. I like to say foreplay all day. Sensory overload or sensory deprivation.
I feel like one causes the other, but I guess sensory deprivation. I don't want like 1,000 things happening at one time because it could be overload. Remove one of my senses. That's fine.
Yes. Okay. One thing ADHD brains deserve way more grace for.
How hard they're working just to look like they're keeping up.
Yes, we love you, ADHD brains out there. We see you. What's more intimate, being naked or being emotionally honest?
That's hard. I think maybe being naked because I am pretty good with saying, "Hey, come on. This is what is happening. This is how I feel. How do you feel?" Like I have enough language in my toolkit and enough of the education to have that language in my toolkit. Maybe 5 years ago, it would have been the opposite. Like emotionally expressing myself, probably that would have been harder. And I love my body and I'm fine with it. But there is something about standing in a brightly lit room without anything on. You're like,
Yeah, super
it takes a
vulnerable.
minute.
It depends on the environment. I mean, I can also be at a play party and be completely naked and not thinking
Be
about it.
totally
There's
fine.
people around.
Yeah, because the lighting is good,
The
hopefully.
lighting is always good in those spaces.
I mean, put it on a dimmer, get some red light bulbs in there. Everyone looks good in red.
That's amazing. Okay, what is your favorite form of aftercare?
Hanging out, laughing, like hanging out. Whether that's laying there, just doing like nice little touches, or grabbing like a snack and chuckling about whatever kind of embarrassing thing probably happened, right? Because there's always an embarrassing thing. Not like a scene killer, and it's intimacy building. If I don't know the person, it would probably be a little bit more clinical. Not like in a bad way, just in a, oh, that was really wonderful. Let's have a hug. Thank you so much. And that is I don't know if that's a defense mechanism or if it's just how I am. But if I'm like in like that state, I'm like, oh my God, let's get milkshakes and, and I turn into like that. So
Yeah. Oh, love that, like, release of the hormone high. What is your current hyperfixation?
it's funny because you touched on it just a minute ago, hormones and perimenopause. And then, of course, the intersection of all of these things. So it all plays together.
My new PhD topic.
Yeah, do it. Oh my God, please, because I do not have the brain capacity for PhD. So you do it.
No, I don't think I do either because I'm also in perimenopause. But somebody out there, one of our listeners will for sure pick this up.
I don't know if I'm peri or not. Hormonally, I'm not. But let me tell you, even though my hormones are not showing it, it's either the stress of the world or my body is full on revolting on. Like my brain, it's my brain. It's not my body. My body is whatever. It's my brain. I'm like, why can I not focus for more than an hour and a half out of the day? Medicated.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's like too hard to find causation now, I feel like, in this world.
I know my poor doctor was like, we can try these other things, but you may need to see a specialist after me. And I was like, great, cool, thanks.
What everyone wants to hear. What everyone wants to hear. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I walk into his office just like with scientific papers. He's like, okay.
Yeah. It's like, settle down now. Settle down.
Slow your roll, girlfriend.
I love that. I love that. Also very neurodivergent, right? Okay. So a green flag that instantly melts you.
Sticking up for other people, seeing something happening and checking, either full on stopping it, but also just like doing like that check, like, you good? That type of thing. I love that when I see women do it. I love it when I see men do it. I love it when seeing someone take care of other people within our society. That's higher than confidence, right? That's hot. That's great. And when men do it to other men, even better.
Yes, please. We need to see more of that male on male, like gentle check-in and care. Like,
Yeah.
give that permission. Oh my God, if every man could like lean into that permission,
we would be in a totally different world. Well, that and everybody just needs more orgasms and stop judging what you like.
yeah, please.
And then putting that on other people.
Yes. I mean, we have fixed the world right now if people would just listen to us.
Yes.
Tarah, this has been fucking fabulous. Thank you for giving the people what we need and what we want. I've been wanting to have this conversation for the longest time, so I'm so glad that you brought it to my audience. Before we go, where can people reach you?
So people can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Forbidden X Found. My website is forbiddenandfound.com. Send me a DM or a message. I love hearing from people, answering questions. I have Ask Me Anything, like a private, totally Ask Me Anything on my Linktree, which you can get through TikTok. I should put it on my Instagram, but it's totally anonymous. I don't ask for an email. I ask for nothing. But if you have like a burning, maybe not a burning question, but like a question that you would like to ask that you think is taboo or you're not getting answers elsewhere, don't go to the internet. Just send it to me. I'll pop on. I'll answer the question.
Slide into Tarah's DMs.
Do it. Do it.
And I'm sure like so many questions, like I have 1,000 million like follow-up questions. We need a part 2 of that.
You can just text me whenever you want, Aimee.
Yes. Woohoo. You heard it here. I'm so excited. Well, thank you everyone at home for joining this conversation. We want to know, what are your takeaways to our neurodivergents out there, fellow ADHDers? for people who are not neurodivergent, but we love a neurodivergent, we see you, we hear you,
We love you.
we love you, and like we want to hear what you guys have learned. Are there tips that we didn't touch on that you like want to share with other people and continue this conversation in the comment section, in our DMs? We love you. As always, remember to masturbate, lubricate, and get it. Thank you for coming. Please come again, and come again.
That's all for today, lover. Remember to masturbate, lubricate, and get it. If you liked this episode, share with a friend, like, subscribe, and as always, thank you for coming. Please come again, and come again.